Welcome to the Future Tech Podcast. I'm your pilot, Nolan Michaels. We had our softball playoffs last night. First round of the playoffs. Well, it's a double elimination, so if you lose twice, you're out. And this will go on for the next couple of weeks. We won our first game 10-7, and then we were down big time in the second game, like 17-9 or something, and ended up winning 21-20. It was a big comeback win. We won in the bottom of the seventh, the last inning. My brother knocked in the winning run. That was pretty exciting. And one of our guys, he was struggling at the plate, hit some weak fly balls, and he was getting mad at himself in game one. And then in game two, his second at bat, he hit another little fly ball in the infield and just whipped his bat against the fence. Like, he got so mad. You got to know, you can't do that. You cannot throw your bat. And I immediately yelled, I'm like, oh, kick him out of here. And sure enough, the umpire ejected him from the game. He got booted from a softball game, a beer league men's softball game. And I'm pretty sure he might get suspended for the next game as well when we play next week. And that's just so funny. He let his anger get the best of him. Good times, right? Okay, so what can we talk about? I think maybe the first thing to discuss is the new hot AI on the market, Ideogram. And when I was telling my mom about this, I guess I came to the thought that, is it pronounced Ideogram? Ideogram. Is it Ideo or Ideo? Either way, this new AI art generator is so good at text, at generating text, legible text, like complicated characters. You can get this thing to say anything, and people are just going off the deep end with it. The funniest people come up with the funniest puns, and they're able to create these crazy t-shirt designs. And the thing that is so impressive is that this AI is able to make really, really high quality artistic designs. You tell it the text you want, and then you give it some guidance in terms of like a character and maybe a background and a style. And this thing can create some of the nicest, I'll just keep saying t-shirt designs because that's probably the most evident piece of work on the website. And everything is public as well, right now at least. So that if there are some really successful prompts, you can just take the prompt and change what you want about it, as in just replace the text and maybe the character. And I think it has the chance to be the most disruptive piece of technology in the space because it is such high quality work. You can make a design in 30 seconds that would take a person like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days to make, maybe a little less, probably more though. And the biggest issue is that there are so many websites that cater to the print on demand crowd where, artists will upload their assets, these designs, and it's so instead of selling it yourself, you'll upload the design and let other people download the design so that they can then sell it in their store. And I don't see why the people downloading these things wouldn't just start making their own. I mean, why wouldn't they? How could you not when the quality is so good, literally comparable to the best humans? I really believe that. I don't think there's a difference. I saw more quality designs on that front page, and this thing is only like 2.5 weeks old. I've seen more high quality designs on that front page to the point where it looks like a print on demand website. Like, yeah, it hurts my head. It really does. I guess I always foresaw AI tools being used to generate individual assets. So sure, you could get a picture of a cool looking character, and then maybe there would be an AI that could generate text. And then maybe you have some special backgrounds that you've created, and then you would have to piece them all together. That made sense. But now, this AI ideogram just makes it all for you? Like, does that even make sense what I'm saying? It just puts it all together into a package for you. And where is that going to leave society? It makes me kind of worried that, the idea of generative video and generative stories. All of that sounds exciting until you realize that maybe these new AIs aren't going to need your input as much as you think. Like maybe you'll just need to give the video generators the most basic of parameters and it will create these masterpieces for you rather than you telling it what about the video would be a masterpiece. And I think that is pretty worrying because that's where a lot of the fun comes out of art, is chipping away at the marble stone to unveil the statue underneath it. If the AI is able to just create the piece of art, like if the skill ceiling of art is lowered so much, or how do I put this? I think traditionally people appreciate high skill ceilings where the best of a certain field can really excel when there is a lot of potential, and to reach that potential is rather difficult. When you raise the skill floor and lower the skill ceiling, and everyone is basically creating the same quality of work, it really devalues the whole output. And I think you could argue against that. I think you could say, well, if each work produced is of high quality, then even though the bar is technically lowered in terms of potential, it's all relative because the quality will all be a certain, 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. There will be no more 4 out of 10s. It's going to become hard to make bad art. And I think that's an okay argument, but if everything is an 8 out of 10, is anything really an 8 out of 10? And maybe in the future people won't care, but as long as there are people who lived before the internet and before AI, I think they will all see the downsides of generating such high quality output with so little input. It's tough to argue that it's a bad thing, but it feels wrong in some way. And I know we've talked a lot about AI art and stealing intellectual property and who owns the output, who owns the input. Ideogram can produce intellectual property at such a high rate. Like, it is clearly stealing from well-known sources and well-known IPs. And I don't see anyone really caring about that. I mean, it's just funny how the outrage will only target the biggest players. When a smaller company starts doing something, they'll only get pushback once they reach a certain level of popularity. And I guess that's just par for the course. Not enough people know about this new AI for the anger and the pitchforks to become louder. Or maybe this is the first sign that, the fight isn't going to be won. Like, maybe Midjourney is in a lawsuit and maybe people are coming at them. But the next company to do it, who's going to put a lawsuit against Ideogram? And then the next company after that, who's going to fight against them? I think the hope on the censorship side is that there will be some regulation eventually by law that says certain companies can't have models trained on intellectual property. But while we wait for that regulation to happen, like what are we supposed to do with the AI that's available right now? Like, it's just, Ideogram is so mind-blowingly good. I just continue to see it being harder and harder to stop the progress. And I've said this before, if artists and actors and companies came out against AI in 2015, I really think they would have had a chance. But they let the AI get strong. They let it bulk up. And now they're saying, whoa, it's too strong. You got to stop it. But that's the point. It's so strong. How are you going to stop it? How can you stop an AI that can replicate your voice with less than a second of audio? Open source. The fight maybe could have been won, but we all waited too long. Hindsight is 2020. And maybe that's why I just don't think being outraged is worth it. Like, we missed our chance. It's already here. I think, at least. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. And I'd like to see humans come together and agree on the best course of action. But I guess the pessimistic side of me, which there isn't much pessimism in me, really thinks that, well, humans can't get together on a whole bunch of issues. People debate about climate change. How would people ever agree on AI? There's debate on nuclear energy and nuclear weapons. How could we ever agree on something in terms of regulating it? What I mean to say is we already have nuclear weapons. How are we just going to get rid of AI? And, maybe a good argument is, well, AI is fine. It just can't be trained on stuff without artist permission and thereby companies' permission. But it's just not a good argument. I really don't think it is. Because the way the AI works is the way the human brain works. You train it on data and you ask it to learn what it can from that data. And then when you use certain keywords, you get the AI to extract the lessons it's learned. It doesn't have a database full of IP that it then on the fly pulls from. It's already learned the lessons. It's how the human brain works. And I don't see the logical argument. I see the emotional argument. And maybe that's a big issue, is that so many people against AI are clearly emotional. And when you have someone shouting or displaying emotion in their words, I think by default, it's probably best not to listen to them because they're not thinking rationally. And maybe the rational thing to do is to be angry and is to be upset. And that's completely valid. I don't disrespect anybody who has a visceral reaction to seeing the capabilities of AI. I truly understand it. And in a one-on-one context, be as emotional as you want. But in terms of, we live in a society and you're trying to get other people on your side, and there are a group of people who don't know anything about a certain topic, and you're trying to appeal to them, being emotional is not conducive to persuasion. If you don't know anything about a product and a salesman gets really emotional as he's talking to you, you'd probably be like, how invested are you in this? Like, what's wrong? Like, either why are you so upset or why are you so happy? Are you okay? Like, I think salesmen or advertisers who are clear, concise, logical, calm, probably sell more. That display of confidence and stoicism feels like it's a bigger seller than hysteria. I think a lot of people get turned off by hype and hysteria and exaggeration and hyperbole. I really do believe that. Oh my God, can I rant about this quickly? I think all toxicity online, and okay, I'm going to use all in quotation marks because I'm sure it's not all of it, but I think a large portion of toxicity online is directly related to the inflated hype of the topic. If there are a bunch of people saying, this movie is the best movie ever, oh my God, you have to see it. Oh my God, this is the best movie I've ever seen. It's going to win so many awards. If you have a portion of online discourse hyping up a certain thing like a movie, as other people begin to watch that movie, if they don't have, let's put it this way, if they aren't consumed by that same hype and that same gravity, I think there is an equal and opposite reaction. You told me that this is the best movie ever. Well, I know it's not the best movie ever after watching it. Therefore, you get thrown the complete opposite direction. It's not easy to hold a middle point of view when one side is so strong about something. If something gets hyped, it's very hard to say, oh, well, it's not that great. I mean, it's okay. I think the extreme negativity and extreme toxicity in online conversations comes from the hyperbolic reaction of a portion of the audience. And I don't see that get talked about enough. Everyone wants to talk about, basement dwellers and people hating for fun on the internet and trolls. I really think their attitudes are born from toxic positivity. Oh, this company can do no wrong. I think that really breeds people completely hating the company and saying it can do no right. If everybody had good things to say and bad things to say, if there was an even criticism from everybody, I think we would see less polar opinions, extreme polar opinions. I think there would be less of that. And I think they come from each other. If someone really hates a movie, I think that's going to get people to say, oh my God, they loved it so much. And I think when people say, oh, they love a certain food so much, you're going to get people saying, are you crazy? That is the worst tasting food I've ever had. Meanwhile, none of them are true. They're just fostering engagement online in the best ways that they can, either by being super positive and harnessing the positivity of other people, or by being super negative and harnessing that negativity from other people, being the beacons of these crazy emotional variances, the most extreme emotional lighthouses that act as beacons for online conversations. That's just a mini rant. Okay, this is rather interesting. In the Midjourney office hours this week, someone posed the question to the CEO of Midjourney, David. They said, is it true that you have hyperphantasia? And he kind of nonchalantly said, yeah. So, of course, I wasn't really familiar with that term. I suppose I had heard of that word or something similar. And I looked it up. And it basically means someone who has an extremely vivid and immersive imagination. And I've always seen my imagination as sort of a superpower. I've known that it's really strong. My imagination is strong. I never called it special because I didn't think it was special. I really think that everybody has access to it in some way or another. And that may have been naive because it turns out that's not true at all, especially when there's a term called aphantasia, and that is basically the lack of a visual imagination. People just kind of can't see in their mind's eye. They think in terms of words and topics, not necessarily imagery. I know it's kind of ironic to say, but that's really hard to imagine. I don't know what that would be like. I almost don't believe them when they say they can't see things in their head. It just doesn't make sense to me, but I suppose seeing things in your head doesn't make sense to them. So that's either here nor there. But I have been curious since the other day, like, do I have hyperphantasia? Is there a scientific term for my imagination? Again, I never thought I was special. And to be honest, I never thought I had a good imagination. Like, I really always assumed other people had better mental imagery. And I think that comes from the idea of, when you hear someone has a photographic memory, I have no idea what that would be like. I do not have a photographic memory. My memory is quite dreamlike. And I thought that applied to imagination as well, where if someone has photographic memory, well, then someone definitely can imagine things more clearly than I can. But then I looked up a little hyperphantasia quiz, or like a little way to test yourself. And I think I do have it. I mean, let me just go through a little bit of it now. In fact, I just asked ChatGPT first if it knew what hyperphantasia was, and then if it could give me a small quiz to test whether I have it or not. So let's start at the beginning. Do you know what hyperphantasia is? ChatGPT. Yes, hyperphantasia is a term that refers to an extremely vivid and immersive imagination, or visual imagery. People with hyperphantasia can conjure up images, sounds, and sometimes even tactile or other sensory experiences in their mind with incredible clarity and detail. It's like the opposite of aphantasia, where individuals cannot voluntarily produce visual images in their mind. Those with hyperphantasia often report being able to see or experience their thoughts in high definition, sometimes to the point where it almost feels real. Now, a few things in there make me think I don't have it. I don't believe I have. Let me put it this way. When I hear that, I get the sense that other people can have like a clear 30 seconds developed in their mind, and then they can walk around a very clear and high detailed room at any point, and they can visualize every single part of the room at once. Whereas in my mind, it feels much more like 99% of the room is peripheral vision, but I can focus on individual objects when they're mentioned. Like if you think of a library, can you see all the books on the shelf? Okay, I can. But I felt that other people could see the individual titles of the books all at once. I don't know if that's true. What I can do is focus on an individual book when it's called for. Like you want me to tell you what the third book looks like, I can focus my lens into that third book and see what it says. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Probably not. Honestly, it probably doesn't make any sense, but that's how I would describe it. So I said, can you give me a small quiz to test whether I have it? And it said, certainly. However, it's important to note that this quiz is not a definitive diagnostic tool, but rather a brief exploration to help you reflect on your own experiences. There are 5 questions. Would you like to complete this quiz with me? That'd be kind of fun. You can let me know where you are on this scale and if we have any similarities. I do suspect that anybody listening to this might be closer to my experience than not, but I could be wrong. So here we go. Question 1. When you think of an apple, how clearly can you see it in your mind's eye? And it's multiple choice. So A, not at all. B, vaguely or just the idea of it. C, clearly but not in great detail. Or D, extremely clearly as if looking at a real apple. What do you think? If I hadn't had the multiple choice in front of me, I would say clearly but not in great detail. But as soon as I see the option for extremely clearly as if looking at a real apple, I can again, focus my lens and zoom in on the apple, and I can see the apple really clearly. I mean that as soon as the option is given to me to focus more closely, I'm like, oh yeah, I can zoom in, I can see the brown spot, I can see the stem, I can see the sticker, I can flip the apple upside down, I can see it on my counter, I can see it on my kitchen table. Seeing it in my hand is a little tougher. No, I can do that. But again, I feel like I see it in a dreamlike sense, where I can see it for a split second. I don't have the apple over time. I don't have it in a 4D environment. I have it in a 3D environment that I can change the look of every time I need to. And I don't know if that's the same thing. I don't know if hyperphantasia means you can watch an apple wither over a day in your mind. I don't know. And I suppose that everybody on any part of the scale cannot imagine what the rest of the scale looks like. In the same way that you can't imagine what it's like to be a genius. I have no idea what it's like to be a super smart person. I see how they act and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know what that feels like. I don't know what it feels like to be a gymnast and have that much control of your body. And to be fair, smart people don't know what it's like to be not as smart, and gymnasts don't know what it's like to have difficulties with their body. Everything is relative, and I think that's really important to remember, because I feel like we often assume that other people will know what we're talking about, and that's just not true. There's no reason for it to be true. Everybody really lives a different life, even though we're all humans, and I think that's cool that the human experience can be played under very different settings. And since we have no control over those settings, I think we have to, take it easier on each other. We're not playing with the same rules, clearly. Question number 2, details. Imagine a beach. Can you picture the individual grains of sand, the ripples of the water, and the details of the seashells? She sells seashells down by the seashore. It's a little tough. Okay, A. No, I can't visualize such details. B. I can think about them, but can't see them clearly. C. I can see them somewhat clearly. And D. I can see them in vivid, intricate detail. So for me, at the start of the question, imagine a beach. That is a very hazy picture for me. I can see the idea of a beach. I can see the sand. I can see the shore, and I can see the water. But what really trips me up is that as the question continues, can you picture the individual grains of sand? Immediately I can. I'm holding them in my hand and I can see them all. The ripples of the water, yes, I can see the foam. I could picture throwing a rock and bloop, bloop, like I can see the ripples. I can picture being in the water and the details of the seashells. Yeah, I can see the seashell, but I could only do those things when they're prompted. Maybe I'm an AI. No, that's really the thing. I don't know if hyperphantasia corresponds with prompting. As soon as those things were mentioned, yes, I could load them into my mind. But I didn't necessarily have them loaded just at the start of the question. Imagine a beach. I couldn't clearly find pictures of the grains of sand. I couldn't find the seashells. I couldn't find the ripples of water until they were mentioned. And I don't know if other people experience that the same way. I really don't know. And then just explaining that really makes me think, like, am I imagining it or am I just loading previous experiences of having seen those things? Is that the same thing as imagination? Probably not. I feel like imagination is seeing something that has never existed, or a combination of two things that have existed to create something new. It's tough to say. Like, can I picture a seashell? Yes, but have I just seen that shell before? And that's what I'm imagining? I don't know. Question 3, sensory immersion. If you think of being at a concert, can you hear the music, feel the vibration, and sense the crowd around you? A, no, I just know the idea of being at a concert. B, I can somewhat sense it or feel it, but it's faint. C, it's like reliving a memory, somewhat immersive. D, it's as if I'm actually there, experiencing it anew. I think I'm on the border of C and D. It is like reliving a memory, kind of how I just explained the seashell thing. Yes, I can hear the music, I can feel the vibration. Actually, hearing the music's a little tougher. No, I can hear it for like a split second. Very short 3D snapshots. The 4D of reliving a full concert over time, that's tough, but is that just a memory issue? I don't know. But in terms of feeling the vibration and sensing the crowd around me, it's as if I'm actually there. I can feel the vibration of being there. I could feel being in the water. I can feel the water going up to my knees. I can feel it going up to my thighs. I can feel it hitting my lower back and being so cold, and you're like, oh, that's awful. But are those just reliving memories? Or it's as if I'm actually there, experiencing it anew? That's a really tough thing to parse. I don't know the difference. Would you have to imagine a new concert, one that you haven't seen? I don't know. Question 4, 2 more to go. Can you change elements of your visualizations? For example, turning the apple from red to green or changing the time of day at the imagined beach. A, I don't visualize things. B, it's hard to change details. C, I can change some elements with effort. Or D, I can easily alter any part of my visualizations. I'd have to say I can easily do it, but again, only when prompted. When it said, can I turn the apple from red to green? Yeah, no problem. I'll turn it back to red. I could turn it into an orange. It's super easy for me to do that. It really feels just like in painting, if I'm talking future tech kind of words, you know? And can I change the time of day at the beach? That one seems to be a little harder, but I can picture nighttime really well. Sunset, no, I can do it. Again, without the prompt, it is a little difficult, but as soon as I said the words nighttime, easy. As soon as I thought of sunset, yeah, okay, I can see the sunset. But I get the feeling that other people can do it better than me. Like, it just feels like there's no way I'm at the 99 percentile of hyperphantasia. I just have to imagine that other people can see their visualizations over a longer period of time, that they can see 10 seconds of an environment when I'm at like 2.5 to 3 seconds. Again, I could be wrong. I don't know. Where are you in all of this? Is what I'm saying sound insane to you? Can you change the color of the apple from red to green? Can you make it a color that doesn't exist? Can you make the apple blue? But I've seen a blue apple. Can you make the apple rainbow? It is a little tougher. I really do. But I can still kind of do it. But have I just seen a rainbow apple somewhere? Like, Am I just recalling memories and placing them in the scene like a bunch of assets that I have somewhere in my mind? Is that all hyperphantasia is? I don't know. Question 5. Intensity. When daydreaming or recalling a memory, does it sometimes feel almost as real as the actual experience? A. No, my thoughts feel very distant from reality. B. Rarely and they're faint. C. Sometimes, especially if it's a strong memory. Or D. Often my visualizations or memories can be just as intense as the real thing. Honestly, I think my thoughts are very distant from reality in terms of the fact that I know they're not in reality. They don't exist yet. That's how I would describe it. But then, okay, I think there's a big distinction there. Visualizations versus memories. I know my visualizations are different and far from reality because they don't exist yet, like I just said. But when I think of memories, I can feel memories quite vividly in a pretty intense way, I think, for sure. But I feel like everyone can do that. The meme about laying awake at night and reliving your cringy moment from grade 3, like that sounds pretty normal to me. That seems like a pretty universal phenomenon. And again, this is just a GPT questionnaire that it made. It might be making this stuff up. I don't think it is, because I'm pretty sure this is the type of things you would ask yourself. I mean, I did a bit of a quiz on another website that was a little similar to this, so I don't think it's completely off. But nonetheless, here's what the results might say about you. If you have mostly A's, you may lean towards aphantasia or have a low visualization ability. Mostly B's. You have some visualization ability, but it might not be very intense or detailed. Mostly C's, you have a good ability to visualize, which is probably average for most people. Okay, that makes sense. Mostly D's, you have a very vivid imagination and might have hyperphantasia. It says, again, this is a very simplistic quiz and may not capture the full range and nuances of everyone's visualization abilities. If you're truly curious about your own abilities, there are more detailed tests and discussions available, and you might consider consulting a psychologist or neuroscientist for a more in-depth understanding. Yeah, probably not going to do that, but I still think it's interesting to place yourself somewhere on the timeline. And I don't see how I could be at the high end of things. I just feel like there are probably people who can visualize things better. But again, as soon as you prompt me to do something, I can see it. And I know this is just sort of anecdotal, but I've said this for a long time, like a really long time, like 15 years or more, that one of the reasons I've never been compelled to travel and go and see things and see places is because I have a really good imagination. I can picture what it's like. I can be on a beach in Greece without ever being on a beach in Greece. But is that just because I've seen pictures and depictions of what that's like and I'm just replaying it? Or is there a part of me that can really extrapolate everything I've learned and live an experience that I haven't actually lived? I don't know. I don't really see the difference. And I wonder where you are on that spectrum. Let me know. Okay, this is kind of funny. I've been tripping out about this recently. Just the idea of how did people find each other before the internet, before cell phones? If it's 1984 and you have a friend that you know lives in New York City, how do you find them? If you went to New York to visit and you're like, oh, I'll go and try and see Bob. How do you find Bob? I know there's phone books and directories and stuff, but like, what if he's out of town for the weekend? How would you know? And sure, you call him up once or twice and he doesn't answer, so you're like, oh, maybe he's out of town, but maybe he was just at the grocery store, or maybe he just hasn't been home all day. Like, this is kind of rhetorical and it's kind of a joke, but like, how did you get in touch with people? Were people more likely to stay at home in case of a phone call? And did you just sit at home waiting for the phone to ring? Were people getting anxiety while being out because, oh, I might have some phone calls? And I know there were answering machines, but I guess I'm really just wondering, like, how did people find each other? If you were looking for someone, how could you ever find them? What if they just went on a 7-month trip to Europe? how would you ever know? How would you ever get a hold of them? How would you ever find them? I don't really know what made me start thinking about that. Maybe it's just like, footage of how busy life used to be, in the sense that it was just as busy as it is now. Like, people have been moving and shaking for a long time. How did they connect with each other? Literally, how did they get a hold of each other consistently enough to where progress could be made? I know there were pagers and stuff, but okay, go a few years before the pager was invented. How did you make progress on something when there was no way to talk to each other in the meantime? I don't know. I guess I don't really have much more to say because my brain can't really process it. It's a bit of a mystery to me. The fact that we live now in 2023, and the fact that most of society was built before all of this new technology, like, that really blows my mind. And I know I've seen this meme about, like, if you ordered a pizza in the 80s, it was 30 minutes or free, and you just gave this random company an address and said, bring me a pizza. And they had to pull out a map. I guess they would ask for the closest intersection, and then maybe they'd have to find that intersection on the map, and then they would have to look for your street. And then when they got to your street, they'd have to look for the number. Like, I just want to know, like, did they have unbearable amounts of anxiety, or was it just normal and they developed a way to handle that sort of stress? Was their brain adapted to being comfortable in uncomfortable surroundings? I really don't know, because I could bet that the majority of today's population would not be able to live how we used to live not that long ago. And, like, I grew up in the 90s, but I didn't really have a lot of autonomy, so I didn't really get to experience what it was like to navigate the world without cell phones and without GPS. I knew that we did it, and I remember driving up to maybe visit my brother at school, and my mom would be driving and my sister in the front seat would have a giant map on her lap, and she would be helping direct where to go. And, like, that was normal, and there wasn't really a better way to do it. And eventually we had, like, MapQuest, where you could Google the place you're looking for, and it would give you like 65 different steps in order to get there correctly, and you would just print that sheet and you would just follow the steps. But, like, what if you missed a step? What if you missed an exit? I just don't remember there being as much anxiety as I could picture today's people having if they needed to live like that. Who's to say? Okay, this episode was pretty fun. A little more optimistic than normal, a little different. I don't know. Please let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you're doing well. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Peace.